welcome to the 2025 IWIL Case Writing Competition live announcement webinar. We're so happy that you've been able to join us today. My name is Laura Woodman. I am the communication specialist at Ivey Publishing, and I am going to be the host today, guiding you through this session, this celebration session. I have to say that these awards are a big part of our commitment at Ivey Publishing for a more diverse catalog. And we were thrilled to work with the Ivey Women Investing Leadership Initiative, which is part of the Ivey Business School, that was created to amplify women's voices and in this case, they work with us to expand representation in business education. And of course, at Ivey Publishing, one of the most powerful ways we do this is through case writing, telling stories that reflect the experiences, challenges, and leadership journeys of people around the world, and of course, women leaders. So this is a very special project for us. And believe me when I say, all of the entire Ivey Publishing team participated in this project. So we have a great program for you today. First of all, you will hear from our Director of Product and Publishing, Violetta Gallagher, who will give you insights from this year's competition. Very interesting insights that'll give you a glimpse of how the competition went and what impact that it had. And then, obviously, we'll reveal who the winners are for this year. So we're very, very excited that you'll get to celebrate with them. Now, we don't want the conversation to stick to this webinar. After this, we will continue the celebration on social media and all of our channels. So feel free to celebrate there as well.
Awesome.
Yes, and now I think it's a great moment to introduce you to my colleague, Violetta Gallagher.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura. We are so excited. So good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Before we announce today's winners, I'd love to take a few minutes just to step back and reflect on what this competition has already achieved. So because the numbers tell a powerful story about global reach, collective effort, and meaningful progress for women in leadership representation. So what began as a bold idea has now become a truly international platform for elevating women's leadership through the case method. So a few key highlights. Let me start you with the top line results for this year's competition. We saw 65 case submissions, which resulted in 65 unique real subject companies represented with 20 different country settings, 49 source organizations, so institutions from around the world, and most importantly, 133 authors contributing their expertise, research, and lived experience. That means 133 voices, 133 perspectives, and 133 people actively helping reshape how women in leadership are represented in business education. So this is not just a competition, it's a global collaboration. When we break this down geographically, the impact becomes even more compelling. Here's a bit of a snapshot of where these submissions are coming from. Within India, it's a representation of 22 organizations within India and 32 case submissions. From Canada, we had 11 institutions, 16 cases. United States, we had 7 institutions, 25 cases. Australia, 2 organizations and 2 cases. In China, 2 organizations and 2 cases. So these numbers show us something really important. It's not just the numbers. This isn't a regional conversation. It is a true global movement. So from North America to Asia Pacific, from established business hubs to rapidly scaling economies, women's leadership is being documented, analyzed, and taught across these borders. And for Ivey Publishing, that matters deeply. Why? Because these cases don't just live in databases, they live in classrooms, they live in student debates, they live in the next generation of leaders' decision-making frameworks. So each of these 65 cases represents a real woman leader, a real organization, a real strategic decision, a real moment of risk, complexity, and leadership. And that's what makes this special. These are not abstract theories, they are lived leadership realities, captured and shared so that the students around the world can learn not only about business, but about representation, inclusion, and leadership under pressure. This is how case writing becomes a tool for systematic change. So this brings me to why this competition exists at all, and to the vision behind Sukhinder's extraordinary gift to IWIL. When Sukhinder was first introduced to women investing in leadership, and these notes were shared with me from Andrea or through our advancement department, she said that she loved the idea of women's giving circle. But in true Sukhinder fashion, she challenged us to think bigger. Sukhinder asked Andrea, how do we scale this? How do we make the impact global? How do we change what students everywhere are actually learning from? And for her, scale mattered. She had a deep interest in Ivey cases and very specifically how women in leadership were being represented within them. She understood something incredibly important. If women are missing from the cases, they are missing from how leadership itself is being taught. So her vision became very clear. We wanted to see more cases featuring women in real leadership roles so that those cases can be taught at Ivey and adopted into classrooms around the world, not as expectations, but as part of the standard leadership canon. And that vision is what gave life to this competition. So when we look at the numbers today, 65 cases, 20 countries, 133 authors, we're not just looking at a successful competition year, we're seeing a vision realized, a global community activated, and a growing body of work that will influence on how future leaders, women and men, learn what leadership truly looks like. So I'll throw it back to you, Laura, and introduce Sukhinder.
Yes. So we have here, thank you, Violetta, for that great introduction and those stats that show that real impact that this competition made. And I think we are especially proud because this was the first year and see how much impact it had. So we're really, really proud of this work. And now I want to introduce you to Sukhinder Singh Cassidy, our generous sponsor and women fantastic leader who champions women leadership. And Sukhinder, say hi to the audience.
Hey everyone, how are you? It's lovely to be here. Can you all see me?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, I can't see myself. So, first of all, thank you for having me. And I couldn't be more excited about this first year of the award and the case study competition. I think, as you described it, as a graduate of Ivy myself and a beneficiary of the case competition, of the case method, I've long been a believer that if you can see it, you can be it. And that seeing real live examples and learning from cases was instrumental to my own career in really, I'd say, getting ready for the kind of the world of business from much less of an abstract concept to much more, kind of in reality version of business education through case studies. So when I was approached from Ivy about giving opportunity, I really felt like, look, if you can see it, you can be it. Is kind of critical. And we also know that in cases, generally, women are underrepresented. They are underrepresented in how often they are the protagonist. They are underrepresented in how often they are profiled as the leaders. And so when Ivy gave me that stat, I was very excited about the opportunity to really direct a gift in that direction because it felt like it would be a gift that could keep on giving. The cases that you write as they go into production and are taught not just at Ivy, but at business schools around the world, we have the opportunity to really amplify the representation of women in leadership roles and in situ, helping, prospective women in leadership understand that in truth, women are already leading, big businesses, impactful businesses. They are already sitting in the seat. And to see that come to life in cases is equally important as seeing it come to life in real life. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Sukhinder, for your generosity and for your vision. We've loved collaborating with you and in this effort, and we're very, very looking forward to presenting this year's winners. So I am now throwing it back to you, Violetta, who will introduce this year's winners.
Awesome. So, and now with that context, it is my absolute pleasure to transition us from the scale of this year's impact, from the vision of Sukhinder, to the individuals whose work really rose to the very top. So for 5th place, we have Angela Shee's journey from international student to AI pioneer, written by Anish Purkayesta. So our 5th place case, Angela Shee's journey from international student to AI pioneer, was recognized for its remarkable entrepreneur story and sharp strategic focus in the AI and fintech space. The judges were especially drawn to the realism of Angela's leadership journey as a solo female founder, the case's direct engagement with gender bias in venture funding, and the high-stakes scaling decision between organic growth, global expansion, and partnerships. So this case was praised for being highly relevant, future-facing, and deeply inspiring for students interested in entrepreneurship and technology. So congrats to the 5th place winner. Next to the 4th place winner, we had Emily McRoy, Tackling Challenges with Person, written by Kanina Blanchard, Ducia Vera, and Vanya Sekellers. Our 4th place case, Emma McRoy, Tackling Challenges with Purpose, stood out for its rich, values-driven portrayal of reasonable leadership in action. Judges were practically drawn to this to show this case and explores the tension between profit and purpose. It also invites reflection on character, courage, and responsibility, and it presents leadership not as a single decision, but as a lifelong evolving journey. So this is a video case, and it also was described as a deeply reflective and emotional resonant, and offering students a powerful lens on what it means to lead with integrity. So congratulations to the 4th place winner. Next up, we're getting there to the top. The 3rd place winner is The Longest Job Interview. Haziasemi McDaniels, Asset Stalled at Interim CEO, written by Zoe Canillas and Felicia Henderson. Our 3rd place case was recognized for exceptional emotional realism and career complexity at the highest levels of leadership. What the judges found especially compelling about this case is how it centers on a woman navigating a prolonged period of professional uncertainty. It also examines the psychological and reputational risks of interim leadership and surfaces the profound impact of networks, identity, and sponsorship on career progression. And judges describe this case as a deeply human, highly teachable, and instantly relatable for leaders across sectors. So congratulations to the 3rd place. Our 2nd place winner is Giovanni Living River, Ripples of Women, Ways for the Nation, written by Neha Mittal and Gary Yoshi. Our 2nd place case, Giovanni, captured the judges with its powerful integration of environmental sustainability, women-led community leadership, and social entrepreneurship. This case stood out because it places a woman leader at the center of crossroads of environmental change. It explores the real tension between scaling nationally and preserving mission integrity, and it highlights the role of community mobilization and government relationships, and CSR alignment. So judges praise this case for showing how purpose, gender, and systems level change intersect in deeply practical ways. And with a huge congrats to 2nd place and moving into 1st place, our grand prize winner is Untangle Money, Wealth for Every Woman, written by Tanisha Juniwa and Miranda Good. Now, our 1st place winner of the IWIL case competition is quite awesome. This case rose to the very top because it so powerfully reflects the core mission of its competition. So elevating women-centered leadership, innovation, and decision-making into the heart of business education. The judges highlight several exceptional strengths. First, This is a highly relevant real-world marketing and growth decision focused on women's financial empowerment and an area that has been long underserved in both practice and pedagogy. Second, the case places Christine Bez, founder of Untangle Money, at the center of complex, high-impact strategic dilemma: whether to continue serving women over 35 through a high-touch coaching model, or to pivot toward younger women with long-term wealth-building potential through a scalable self-serve platform. Third, the judges were especially impressed by the teaching power of this case. It brings together consumer behavior, brand strategy, market segmentation, and gender equity into one cohesive, decision-driven classroom experience. Ultimately, this case was selected as first place because it does exactly what this competition was designed to do. It places women's realities, financial futures, and leadership decisions at the center of business education, which is where they belong. So congratulations to all the winners. Congratulations to submitting into the competition. We are thrilled, and we will be publishing those in the coming months. And as Laura has mentioned, you'll be seeing many LinkedIn posts and opportunities to what we're trying to drive here is having these taught within the classroom. So congratulations to all the winners. So I think now, Laura, now that we've shared the scale of this year's competition, the global reach and the number of offers and the incredible diversity of leadership stories, I'd love to take a moment to talk about the why behind it all. And at its core, this initiative is grounded in a simple but powerful idea: how we teach leadership shapes who sees themselves as leaders. So the case method is one of the most influential teaching tools in business education. It shapes how students think under pressure, how they define success, and who they subconsciously picture when they imagine themselves in positions of power. So today we want to explore what it truly means to move from the classroom to the boardroom and how representation along the journey matters. We're incredibly fortunate to be joined by Sukhinder, who's navigated both worlds as a student shaped by the case method, as she mentioned, and as a leader operating at the highest levels of the business. So I'm thrilled to explore that full arc with you today, Sukhinder. So jumping right into it, looking back at your time at Ivey, how did the case method shape your growth as a leader? And were there moments where you noticed gaps in representation for women? Oh, you're just muted, Skinner.
About that. I muted just so I wasn't noisy with others. I would say first and foremost, Ivy, I think, was very instrumental to my business education because it was a very debate-centered and I'd say problem-solving centered method of education. So I'd say it made me very comfortable even entering the business world and speaking up for myself, believe it or not, in rooms where my opinion was asked for, and even in rooms where my opinion wasn't asked for. It made me very comfortable, I'd say, participating in the business discussion because I had lots of practice at Ivy. And I think, one of the tangible realities of entering the workforce and entering the work world is you're looking for your place. You're looking for an opportunity to speak up. You're building your confidence. And I would say my confidence was first built at Ivy. And I think that's quite important. Now, in terms of where, did I see representation opportunities or gaps when I entered the workforce? And even today, the answer is yes. Luckily for me, in many cases, those are diminishing, and I'll give you some examples. But, I entered the world of work through investment banking. And I would say that was very heavily male dominated. And again, just linking it all the way back to Ivy, I think that one of my good fortunes was having come from Ivy, being very comfortable and I'd say in a fairly aggressive environment where there weren't a lot of women in speaking up for myself and representing myself and even my own opinions. So I think, not sort of asking for permission, if you will, just presuming that I had a right to share an opinion and kind of to have and be at the table, even if I was a very junior person at the table. I think as I've advanced through my career, I've been in many tables, boardrooms, regular tables where I'm the only woman, but that presumption that I I'm there because I deserve to be there has always held true, starting with Ivy. And so, I think people often say, like, if you're the only person at the table, like, presume you're there for a reason, and that and pull up a seat. I think I've very much taken that approach to sort of my own representation in any room I'm in. I would say more recently and kind of delightingly, I'm a female CEO and I have been one for obviously I've been a CEO for the last 15 years. Now I'm teams and boardrooms where a lot of and of course the rise of women into the C-suite. So although they're not enough, they're certainly more than there used to be. And so now I'd say increasingly in the last 5 years, I'm not the only one in the room. My own boardroom at Zero has 3 women on the board out of 7, and that's besides the CEO. And I'd say my C-suite, the chief financial officer, the chief revenue officer, the chief product and technology officer, are all women. And those are not support roles to the C-suite. They are, among the most important roles in the C-suite. So that's how it's changed over time.
That's fantastic. And I love the representation in the C-suite that you're experiencing. And, thinking back to your younger self sitting in that classroom, how important do you think the visible role models would have been?
I think they're very important. I mean, look, as you know, Ivy itself, I think, has a gender diverse class, which is great. So I think that is, I think, first of all, you want to look around the classroom and see people who look like
Yeah.
you. You want to see cases, as we've talked a lot about. That's what this award is
Yes.
about, that show obviously all sides of diversity in leadership. And I would say when I was at Ivy, and I'd say throughout the early parts of my career, of course, I was looking always for role models, and often those role models might not have been in my business, but they were, available to me. Whether it was going out to see somebody speak, whether it was, sometimes there was the only woman who was 2 or 3 levels higher than you, but often I got them from the environment. I remember at least one case when I was early in my career in tech. I had gone to a business dinner where a woman named Heidi Roizen, who was one of the early women to take money from venture capital, was being awarded. And several years later, I had the opportunity to interview her for
Mhm.
an event I was hosting. And I said to Heidi, I was like, I'm not sure if you realize, like, when I was in my 20s, like, now I meet you as weirdly an equal, but when I was in my 20s, like, you were the person. I saw you speak at an event and get an award for being a pioneer. And like that left an impression on me, just so
Yeah.
you know. And I can remember distinctly several of those opportunities where early women in tech were being recognized. And I was a junior woman in tech. And many years later, like through my good fortune, I got to meet many of them. And I would say to them always, I just don't know if you realize that, like, 10 years ago, I was sitting in a room where you were getting an award. And I was thinking, wow, I hope one day I can, I can see it or be some of what I'm seeing.
Absolutely. And I think what you're also describing is something that we hear over and over again, and bringing it back to the case method, which we know is incredibly powerful. But for a long time, many students didn't, as you said, didn't consistently see themselves reflected in the leadership narratives that were being taught.
Hmm.
And yet, those same classrooms were shaping confidence, decision
Hmm.
making frameworks, risk tolerance, personal definitions of leadership. So these stories we elevate in those rooms, they will truly matter. So that's great. And that kind of brings us to, today. Because
Hmm.
while progress has been absolutely been made, the business landscape is, obviously evolving, and especially, thinking about the tech space, and this is all happening at a rapid pace. Leadership looks different than it did even a decade ago, and the
Hmm.
pressures of facing women leaders today are both familiar and kind of entirely new. So, Sukhinder,
Hmm.
in today's business landscape, what stories or challenges facing women leaders do you feel are most crucial for case writers to be addressing right now?
Sure. So here's one that we see often in the data, and this is the data from folks like Lean In and McKinsey. They
Yeah.
do reports like the, State of Women report. They do it every year. This year, in the 10th year, I was part of one of their panels, and one of the things they shared that surprised me that I think is an area you could attack in future cases is women at the mid levels of leadership. Why? Because it is called the broken rung of leadership. The data suggests that, that we often think about, we talk about the C-suite, we talk about entry levels, but McKinsey's data would suggest that the middle levels of leadership are what's called the broken rung. And why? Because at these points in times, women are considering their options. I am becoming a new mother. I might have the beginning of caregiving responsibilities for an elderly parent. I am struggling to stay in the workplace potentially and think my only option is to exit. And then when you exit mid-level and you come back in, it is a broken rung because meanwhile, your other colleagues might have stayed and continued to progress. So I think one of the most interesting areas to write about, in today's construct might not be women in the C-suite or women protagonists in the C-suite. What about protagonists, in the middle levels of leadership and some of the things we encounter there? There also, by the way, rate of promotion becomes important. You might
Yeah.
be worried about implicit bias, some of the traits that women are often both praised for and not for when they show it, like, aggressiveness, ability to take more risk, ability to advocate for themselves. Many of these things also, show up in those middle levels of leadership. So I think that's one construct that could be interesting to look at. The other construct I would submit that's interesting, which is again often an untold story but needs to be told, is we are living, as you know, through revolutionary
Yeah.
technology. I mean, the AI landscape is fraught, and yet the stories that are being told are being the stories of men. But what about the stories of women? Lisa Su is, finally making the headlines with her right due as the CEO of AMD. Really trying to build a chip that takes on NVIDIA. You know, there is Mira. Mira is the ex president of OpenAI. She's building one of the largest AI companies. There's Lexi Reese. She's building an AI company to help other companies understand AI. So, I think women around disruptive technology is another story that needs to be told. There are many women, not just in Zero obviously is also an AI company, but there are AI native companies and women leading the next forefront of disruption, what we will look back on 5 years from now and say, my God. And telling the stories of women leaders in, driving disruption, I think is another important story to tell.
Absolutely. And I think, as you said, it's that fully capturing the intersection of leadership with technology, globalization, or even social responsibility for women today.
Mm-hmm.
As you said, we don't see enough of it. And, I think of myself, mid-management resonates so much for me. That's something that, you constantly, there's days where you feel alone, and then there's days
Mm-hmm.
that you feel supported, and how you make those choices as, as a leader, and how you continue to progress through your career. That's so important. So we've
Well,
looked
hopefully these are some of the areas where next year's case
Yes,
writers might
exactly.
focus. Let's see.
I feel like there might be a theme here in the making here. I like this idea. So
Mhm.
we looked backward at how leadership education shaped you. We've talked about the leadership realities of women that are navigating today. So I'd like to look a little bit ahead, and we
Mhm.
just, there's themes, there's opportunities here. So because it's ultimately that the competition is about shaping the future of leadership education, right?
Mhm.
So looking
Mhm.
ahead 5 years, 10 years, what impact do
Mhm.
you hope these initiatives like this competition will have on students and on the way leadership itself is taught?
Well, I think that first of all, Ivy will continue, I'm sure, to be a leader in making business leadership practical, tangible, accessible, interactive. These are all the words I associate with my own kind of education at Ivy, and I think are enduring, relatively speaking, in Ivy's promise, distinctively as, innovative, business kind of education platform. So that I think I hope endures. I think now, look, I can't imagine all the new ways cases will get taught, but I think the promise of how Ivy teaches, I hope continues on. I think I want to finish maybe where we started, which is my hope is that the cases we're talking about today, are not only taught and normalized, that at every generation of this case writing, to your point, we're reflecting today's reality and tomorrow's ambition. So I know that if today, the case that needs to be written is not, it could be about a middle management challenge for facing a female leader, or it could be about a leader in AI. What I really hope is increasingly, these stories are normalized. Nobody, no, like, I would love 10 years from now for this gift not to be necessary, to be honest, because
Yeah.
it's proliferated and it's no longer the exception, it's the rule. But if 10 years from now, we're still in this position and these cases still need to be financed and written to reflect representation, well, gee, I really hope that they continue to reflect not just what's just happened, but foreshadow the stories of women who are doing things that need to happen next. I just want to see women and women leaders continue to be reflected, not just as, to your point, in the stories of the business that's just happened, but also the business that's about to happen.
Absolutely. And I completely agree. And then to that, I think it's not only how they become a leader and how they are a leader, but how they lead, right? It's also how
Yes.
they interact. And not just with other women, it's with all the genders
Yeah.
across the
Yeah,
board.
all genders. I mean, yes, look, I mean, as I said, that's why I hope this isn't necessary. Like in
Yeah.
some ways, the best thing that could happen is representation happens
Yes.
everywhere. And this needs to be kind of a gender lens. And look, what I know is women do attract diverse leadership populations themselves. They build highly inclusive and diverse teams. So I know that when women lead, good things happen with regard to more broad diversity and representation. But yeah, we'd love to not have to, ensure that these cases are being written, but have them be written just because it's so popular.
I like your success metrics. I'm thinking hopefully we don't have to do this in 10 years. Um,
Exactly.
we have cases that are tangible, interactive, as you said. So it's an engaging conversation for the students, and then, representation.
Yeah,
But not
and
just
and popular among the cases being taught
yes,
everywhere around the world, and obviously popular in it's being taught because it's popular in truth. That the proliferation of women in these roles continues.
I love that vision. So because it all reinforces something we deeply believe, and this work isn't just about representation for the sake of fairness, it's about better
Yes.
leadership education and
Hmm.
ultimately. So when students learn from a broader, richer range of leadership experiences, everyone benefits, organizations, communities, and societies as a whole. And you said it very well too, that, bringing women tend to bring in a greater representation, greater diversity in their teams.
Yeah, and
So
of course, and of course, diverse teams outperform. So I mean, again, the data is very clear here.
it absolutely, that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Sukhinder. And as we bring this part of the conversation to a close, I just want to reflect on something that's come through so clearly. Your journey from Ivy's classroom to the boardroom, I think embodies exactly what this initiative is about. And I think it's about creating clear pathways, expanding what leadership looks like as we discussed, and ensuring students don't just study power, but see themselves inside it. And I do think that this competition exists because of belief that stories change minds and minds change systems. So through your leadership and through today's finalists, and through every case submitted, that belief is taking, I think, root into the classrooms around the world. So thank you so much, Sukhinder, for sharing not only your insights, but
Thank
your
you.
lived experience with us today. It does truly bring the purpose of this competition to life.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Back to you, Laura.
Thank you so much, Sukhinder. I am inspired by your words, and I truly believe that we'll reach that level of diversity and representation that, as you said, these initiatives won't be needed in a decade. Let's only hope so. Thank you
Yes.
so much. Well, as we close this session, I want to thank everyone for having joined us today. I want to encourage you to celebrate the winners, as I said at the beginning, on social media to continue the conversation. And if you missed the opportunity to submit to this case competition this year, well, I have great news to you. We will continue. We will continue this initiative for years to come. And I want to say that the next IWIL case writing competition will be, the details will be available the next International Women's Day in March 8th and 2026. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned to our channels at Ivy Publishing channels on social media, specifically on LinkedIn, to learn all the details next March. We're very, very excited. And we will have another webinar right after we announce those details. So you don't want to miss that. Absolutely. We're very, very excited. So this work continues. We're closing this cycle and then restarting right away in the spring. Very excited. Now, about the winners of this competition, there's things happening. Next, these cases, as Violeta said, will be published very soon. We can't give you a timeline right now, but stay tuned. Will be published very soon. Will be available in our collection, and they will be available globally because our partners, our global partners, will also have them available. So anywhere in the world where you are, your classroom will have the opportunity to teach with these cases. Also, we will celebrate each and every one of the winners with specific video interviews and articles that will be available once the cases are published. So we're very, very excited to have those conversations with the winner one by one and hear from them. And in many cases, we'll be able to speak to the case protagonists as well. So that is something we're really looking forward to. So there's lots to come. So the final message here is, this is about advancing business education in a way that is more inclusive, in a way that is more representative of everyone's journeys, in a way that students right now can see themselves in the classroom, in the stories that they read, in the cases that they learn with. So thank you so much for being part of this. We are very proud of this work. We're very thankful to you, Sukhinder, for your generosity and your vision. And if you have any questions, we are only one click away on social media and obviously on our website. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you have a fantastic weekend.
Thank you.